I know a lot about you. But for those who may not know, just start off by explaining who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Greg Helbeck. I've been a real estate investor for like 10 years now. I got started when I was 20. I was in my parents' basement, kind of like typical story you hear, you learn about real estate. And, it was really attractive to me because I really didn't know what I wanted to do for a career. And I was going to community college. So learned about real estate at a seminar, and I started to go out after the seminar and, market to sellers and, put out bandit signs, send mailers, all that stuff with a very limited budget. So after like 9 months of taking action, I basically found my first house and I was able to, hey, 1 second. Someone's printing something and it's making
Like,
this noise. I don't know
no,
if you
you're
can
good.
edit
I
it
don't
out.
even hear it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, it took me like 9 months and I did my first deal and made like 5 grand. And I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like it wasn't a lot of money, but at the time it was. And
Yeah.
it was a proof of concept. And then from there, started slowly but surely doing more business and it was wholesaling houses at the time. And since then, I mean, just to fast forward you, obviously it's a journey. We could talk about it, in the middle. But, built a business up now where we do, 45, 50 houses a year in New York and Washington and Delaware. And, I got a small team, we wholesale flip, I got rentals, built a pretty good sized business at this point, something that I'm really proud of and something that really is congruent with my lifestyle. And, it's been a heck of a journey, man. And I really love this business. I'm passionate about it. It's been great to me, and it's one of those businesses where it's like the sky is the limit. So depending on your level of ambition, you can make as much money as you want, right? There's no ceiling to the income you can make or the business you want to build.
That's awesome, man. So 9 months. So people literally have babies in 9 months, So
I've never heard someone say it like that. Yeah, it was almost like pregnancy for real estate.
yeah, yeah, that's so funny. So is that normal, you think? Like, is it normal for people to, take some time to get started in this business?
I mean, honestly, I felt like 9 months was a long time for me, but looking back, it's like I didn't know what I was doing. So like, maybe I got lucky it took 9 months. I would say if you're brand new and you have no business or real estate experience, like it probably takes like 6 to 9 months to like do a deal because you're starting from scratch. You most likely don't have money. You have no knowledge of, how to do the business, maybe besides watching podcasts. So, I mean, it should be hard in the beginning. And that's something that I don't think I understood when I started is like I was like listening to all these people on podcasts like making money and
Yeah.
they've been doing the business for a while. So like when I was listening to them when I wasn't making money, I was like, what the hell's the problem here? Like why hasn't this worked for me? But now that I have a lot of experience, I'm like, yeah, like you had no business experience. You didn't know what you're doing. You're brand new. Of course it took 9 months. Like,
Yeah.
so I think if you're new and you struggle in the beginning, you kind of want that to happen because if you get a deal like your first month and you make 30 grand and you truly don't have the skills to like handle that, you're gonna piss it all away and you're gonna think you're like some big shot. So I'm actually glad it took a while to get started.
Yeah, that's so true, man. So you said you have a small team now. Did you start alone?
I did. Yeah, it was me forever. It was like probably from 2016 all the way up to 2021, I think. It was just basically me. I would get VAs every now and then to do like random admin projects, but it
Yeah.
was just me for like, 17, 18, 19, 5+ years. And then I hired an assistant. And then after that, I hired my buddy who like asked me to work for me. Like it was I didn't even like go out and recruit him. Like he was like, hey man, like, I want to work with you and buy houses. And because he was working for this other guy and he wasn't the business he was working for wasn't doing as many deals as he wanted to do. So he saw me like go out and was doing a bunch of deals on my own with an assistant. And I would actually have him run out to properties for me because I knew he wanted to, get more involved in the business. So I was like, hey, can you take this lockbox over to this house? I'll pay you $1,000 when it closes, whatever. And then he was like, oh shit, like every time Greg calls me, I usually make some money one
Yeah.
way or the other. And then he actually, because this is a good point for the podcast, is he hit me up about his neighbor's house. His neighbor at the time was like, they inherited their property. It was like, a probate deal. And he's like, yeah, you should call them. Like it's vacant. Like no one lives there. I live across the street. Ended up buying that house and did really well on it doing a fix and flip, and I think I gave him like 7,000 it was a lot of money. I gave him like 7 to 10 grand for or no, it was 6 grand. Sorry, it was $6,000 for that referral. He just gave me the lead. He didn't do anything else. And he thought I was going to give him like $1,000 or something. I gave him $6,000, three when I bought it and three when I sold it. And that was the most money he ever made on a real estate deal up until that point. He's done very well ever since. And he was like, "Holy shit! Like this is something I think I want to do." So then he asked me to like be the acquisitions guy, and I was kind of like, I don't know. And then I thought about it, and then I didn't think I had the business at that time for it, but I decided to do that, and I said, "Hey, like let's do it." And ever since then, he's been like my right hand man, and he's a partner now in the business, which is awesome. So he's a partner in Delaware, and he's gone on to do tremendously well, and then we crush it down there.
That's sweet, man. So you're in multiple markets. When you
Yes.
started, I assume you probably was only in one market.
I started out, I was just in New York and it was really hard. And I didn't really know how I was going to be able to make it there because it was a attorney state and still is.
Yeah,
So every deal you do, you have to get a lawyer involved. And, actually you got to get several lawyers involved because there's one for the buyer, one for the seller, one for the wholesaler, one for the lender. It's really complicated. And I still don't know why I still operate there, but we've got it down pretty much to a science now. But yeah, I mean, it was a tough market and it was really, I think it was holding me back from growing because I forgot to mention that in between when I got started and to where we're at now, I had this little kind of like in between period where I wanted to like go virtual
yeah,
before that was like the cool thing to do. And I was running into problems in New York where they wanted big earnest money deposits and there was lawyers involved and everything just took forever to close and get paid on. So I was like, in
yeah,
my head, I was like, I could take what I'm doing in New York and do it in like an area like Texas, where apparently it's really easy to do business. This might be a better way to go about it. So it turns out that I was right. I took what I was doing in New York and I was basically just finding like these really distressed properties and not mailing them necessarily, but actually cold calling them before it was popular. So I would find like someone on a list that was tax delinquent and then the house was vacant. And most likely, if that's the case, it was inherited. And I would just call the relatives and say, "Hey, I want to buy this property. It's been sitting there for 5 years." And down in Texas, there was a lot of them and they were really cheap. So that strategy of like basically it was like it's called deep skip tracing. That's like the coin that gurus call it now was like non-existent. So I like back in this is like 2018, 2019, even 2020, be like one out of every five leads we would get, it would be a deal, and we would just lock it up over the phone and wholesale it. And that's how I was able to get like momentum in the business. Like that took, like I said, I started at the end of 2015, and by the time 2018 rolled around like mid-year, I started to make like 250,000 in the business. So it took me like 3.5 years to actually like make a decent amount of money for my age at the time.
yeah. That's awesome. That's an incredible story. That's why I wanted to have you on here, just from other podcasts that I've watched, man. Like I think you're just inspirational. Um, yeah, man, for sure. So right now, when is the last time you've actually physically been in a house? Do you still do that?
I'll do it in Washington. I live here now. If I'm in New York, which I go there a lot, I'll go to houses just kind of like for fun,
Yeah.
to like film content or something. But the last time I had to actually be in a house where it was like super important and I like me going there, like maybe got the deal, I don't even remember the last time that was the case. Like where I had to be there because it was going to make or break the deal. Like I honestly can't tell you the last deal that we did where that was like critical to success.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty interesting. Um,
Yeah.
so when you pick these markets, are you picking them because you know people in these markets, or are you looking at data to find them? Like, how did you end up where you're at now?
That's a great question. And I talk about this a lot on my like social media is like a lot of people think you need to be virtual in multiple markets. And I think it's usually a bad idea unless you have certain circumstances. Like, for example, I live in Seattle or in the Seattle area. So for me to do business here makes sense because I'm personally local
Yeah.
and the spreads are big here. So it's like it's a market where you can make a lot of money if you are good enough. And I live here. So if I need to go see a house for whatever reason, I can do it. Like I bought a house here that I flipped and I went there after it closed to like, check it out, but I didn't need to like go on the appointment to get the deal. Like it was bought over
Sure.
the phone. So if you're living in the market you're in, I would say it generally is a decent idea to start there, unless you're in like a New York where it's really hard for newbies. So Seattle, I live here, so that's why we justify operating here. My partner Brett lives in Delaware, the guy who I told you about earlier. He
Yeah.
lives in Delaware. So once again, If we need to go to the house to be competitive, we can do that. He's connected really well in the community there, so we have that advantage as, with relationships and whatnot. And then New York is where me and him both grew up. We know pretty much everybody in the real estate space there. We've been operating there for 10 years now. So, and my family's back there, and I go there a lot and I have a lot of rentals there.
Yeah.
So, despite it being a hard market, and it's not that competitive because it's so like competitive with other buyers because it's so hard to deal with the attorneys. So there's not as much competition there compared to like Seattle or Delaware. So that's how we justify being in these three areas is where we live and then, New York being where we're from and we've been around there. We're so seasoned there and we know that area like so well. Like if you give me a street in like one of the six counties we operate in, like I can tell you what the ARV is without even like going on Zillow. Because like we've done so many houses there. We just know, oh, it's a 3-2 ranch in this school district. Like it's probably going to sell for this price. And like we go online and we're like 90% accurate.
Oh, that's awesome. Man, one thing that I've noticed about you just from watching you is you have like huge confidence. You believe in yourself. Was it always like this? Like, did you grow up with any limited beliefs that you had to, fight and get over?
Yeah. So that's a great question, man. And I work hard on it every day. No one's perfect, but to give you some context before I got into real estate, I was not a professional hockey player, but I was like an amateur hockey player. I played, high school hockey, I played junior hockey, and my goal was to play in pros, and that never ended up working out. But during that period, I started playing hockey like relatively late to when everyone starts. So most people start playing hockey when they're like, 10 or not 10, like 5 and 6. I really started playing seriously when I was 14. So I had a lot of catching up to do. So even though I did pretty well starting, like compared to where I started from, I was always like the worst player on the team because I had this big gap where I didn't play for like 7 or 8 years. So like everyone else had all that advantage. So I was always like the worst player on the team, and I had that stigma attached to me. And it really impacted my confidence. And I would get bullied. And I don't want to make this a sob story because it
Sure.
wasn't that bad. But like, people didn't have confidence in me. If I was on the ice, I wasn't that reliable. And that impacted my play and it impacted my confidence. Like I would get out there and I had this belief around me that I sucked. So like, you get what you believe in, right?
Yeah.
So most games I didn't play that well because I was always kind of looked at as like the oddball on the team, and I am a little quirky, but it would fuck with my confidence. And like people would be like, "Oh, you suck," and I would get trash talkers and I'd get in fights. It was just kind of a nasty situation. I had situations I'd go to camp and I'd get screwed with, and then I'd end up punching guys in the face. Like it was not a good situation. But then I remember one game we played, I'll never forget, it was in Yonkers where I grew up in that area. And we played this team, and I was like, I decided that day I wanted to like, I'm gonna have the best game ever, and I'm not gonna screw around. I'm gonna be the best player on the ice. And I had like 3 or 4 goals, and I was one of the best players on the ice. And everyone was like, "What the fuck's going on? Like, where did that come from?" And I just was really confident that night. I had belief in myself that I was going to be great that day,
Yeah.
and it ended up working out. And we did play a crappier team, but I played 10 times better than I normally played, and my confidence was through the roof. And then after that, it dwindled down back to, the baseline. So I had to overcome that in sport. And at least back then, like I was an older player, so I didn't have time on my side from a hockey standpoint. But when I got involved in real estate, I was so young compared to when most people start. It gave me like the biggest advantage you could ever get. Like I was dealing with guys who were 30, 40, 50 years old. I was 20. So I
Yeah.
learned all these skills in business and then mindset when I was like basically in college. I was reading all these books and Brian Tracy and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and Darren Hardy, like all the guys Zig Ziglar. So I would like consume all these books, and obviously that started to become my belief system. And then I started taking action, and that's how I've been able to develop a fairly decent mindset, in business. Is because in hockey it was the complete opposite,
Yeah.
and I had to deal with all this, like a lot of bullying, man. Like people telling me I would never fucking make it. You're a loser. Fuck you. I lived in Massachusetts playing hockey, and like everyone in Boston fucking hated me, dude. I was like the village idiot, and it was bad. I was miserable, dude. I was fucking miserable, and I'd call my mom every day, be like, "Fuck this! I want to come home. This is terrible. Everyone hates me. I'm fucking law. I had no money. I was like living like not in college. I was living in like a billet, like a host family's house, like in their random bed. It was fucking brutal, dude.
Yeah.
And I remember one day, just to kind of like tell you really how it changed, is we were playing a team up in Portland, and I'm sorry for rambling if I'm rambling, but
No, no,
we
you're
played a
good.
team in Portland, Portland, Maine, not Oregon. And I had this weird thing in my head where I was like, all right, like I've been playing hockey now, like after high school for like a year and a half, or now like a year, a little bit over a year. Went to Canada, got cut from some teams, and went back to Massachusetts and was playing in this like kind of garbage league. And I was like, all right, if I play shitty this weekend, no matter whether we win or lose, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Like I'm fucking wasting my life up here. And if I play good, I'll continue. And we played the Portland Pirates and we fucking smoked them, but I played like shit. And I remember I was on the bus driving back from Portland through Boston back to the house south of Boston. And I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here. Like, I need to get out of here. I'm wasting my fucking life up here. I'm pissing my parents. My parents paid for me to play hockey. Like, they weren't rich, but they made the sacrifice to have me play hockey.
Yeah.
I'm pissing their money away. I haven't gone through college yet. Like, this is a disaster. So I remember we get back to the house. I'll never forget this. This is crazy. It was like, this is a long time ago now. I'm getting older, but we're in the fucking house, and all the boys were like, all right, we got the weekend off. We're going to go get some beer at the store and we're going to party. And all these knuckleheads went out to the store to get beer, and I was the only one at the house. And I was like, fuck, if I want to get out of here, this is my one chance where no one's going to see what I'm doing. I literally packed up my fucking car and drove right back to New York. And I told the boys, I was like, yeah, guys, like I'm heading back for the weekend. Like I'll see you guys on like Tuesday or whatever. And I was like, remember pulling out of the fucking house. I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm never coming back. And I called my mom. I was driving through Connecticut and I was like, hey, mom, I'm getting the fuck out of here. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm in Hartford right now. I'll be back in 2 hours. I'm done playing hockey. Like I gotta just shut this one down here. This is not gonna work out. And it was like bittersweet. And yeah, I think like maybe a year later I got involved in real estate and things have gotten a lot.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
that was a wild story. Yeah, I'll never forget that. It was like this, it's like September of 2014 is when that went down. Yeah.
that's amazing, man. Sometimes it's what it takes though, right? You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing, you know, and this is a great interview. I appreciate these questions because I remember like in hockey, my confidence was so fucking low. And I remember being like, no one believes in me. I suck. You're not going to play good. And I was playing with fear.
Yep.
And I was like, this is not a good spot to be in, you know, and it obviously dictated to the results. And then I was like, in business, I was like, you know, it's obviously not a physical sport, but like you're still kind of like you need to perform.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to fix my mindset because if I can fix my mindset and then apply my new and adaptive mindset to something else, I think I'll do pretty good in it. And I think a lot of people in real estate have a similar situation that I had within hockey is they just don't think the business works. They don't think sellers will sell their houses cheap. They don't think buyers will buy them, you know, pay whatever for the house. They don't think tenants would, whatever. They don't think being a landlord is for them. They have all this bullshit in their head. And that bullshit becomes like this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they don't have success. And then they're like, oh, fuck, this business doesn't work.
Yep. I agree. Our beliefs are so powerful, man. They really
So
are.
powerful.
Yeah. So what I know you said you read a lot of books, you know, the Jim Rohn, you instilled a lot of beliefs into you. Other than reading, was there anything else that you did? Like I know some people meditate, some people, you know,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you did to just try to rewire your brain?
For sure, man. So I'll give you three things. The first thing is I started hanging around people who were, you know, either more successful than me or maybe at the same level of success with me, but they have ambitions to be better. So I hung around people who were like like-minded individuals, as they say. So I
Yeah.
that was the big one because you become who you hang out with, right? If you're
Yeah.
hanging out with a bunch of guys making millions of dollars, you're going to be making millions of dollars because you're inevitably going to adapt their beliefs and habits to get to that goal. The second thing that I did, which is, you know, something I've done forever, is I've always been big on working out, man. Like I've always been big on fitness, going to the gym, running, you know, doing something physically that's hard. I've always been a fan of that, man. Like I always need to be working out 5 days a week. You know, I'm doing cardio, I'm lifting weights. I want to put my body through something challenging from a workout standpoint. And that's the second thing. It's super big deal. Some people think like, oh yeah, I'll just make a bunch of money and be out of shape. Like you're gonna feel like crap if you do that. And then the third thing is I started doing, you know, I don't even like saying this because I don't want to sound like one of those assholes, but like cold showers, like
Yeah.
every morning. Like I don't even like saying it because it sounds so stupid, but like if like I do this every day, Monday to Friday, usually. Saturday, sometimes I'll do it, but depending, Sunday, definitely not. But every day from Monday to Friday, I will take a cold shower for at least a minute. And
Yeah.
it'll be, especially in the winter, like it's freezing. And I'll sit in there and it'll suck. but I've gotten so used to it, it sets the tone for my day. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I already took a cold shower. That was freezing. I was in there for a minute or two. Like, I feel good now because I just did a hard thing, taking a cold shower, and then that sets me up for the day. So like that's been something I've been doing that for like almost 10 years, dude, and it is like super powerful. Not because, I've kind of gotten used to the cold shower at this point, but just the getting in the habit of doing something you naturally don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like humans naturally don't want to go into cold water, but when you go and do that, it's like a life hack because then it's like, oh fuck, I gotta call that investor and raise that capital. I don't want to do that because he might say no, but if I don't try to do it, the answer is inevitably going to be no.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think that discomfort for your body helps your mind go through the same type of discomfort when you're doing
Yeah.
things you don't want to do, right?
Oh, it's
Uh,
huge. Yeah.
So yeah, man, I mean, I know that, you talked about when you first got started, you did a lot of cold calling. I know that you're like when I think of direct mail, you're one of the first people I think about. What are you doing in your business now? Are you still cold calling? Are you doing any mail, PPL, PPC?
So we're doing a bunch of different things for marketing. The first thing I'll tell you that's working really well now is referrals. So wholesalers, real estate agents, previous sellers, vendors like attorneys, accountants, whatever. So like we're getting a lot of deals just from word of mouth now, which has taken a long time to build up. Those have been phenomenal, especially wholesalers. We've been buying deals from wholesalers, and it's been incredible for us. We're getting great deals. Second thing we're doing that is like probably our backbone of the business, like you mentioned, is direct mail
Yeah,
where we're mailing a bunch of different lists, niche lists, broad lists, predictive lists, you name it, we're probably mailing it, getting calls coming in, tracking the ROI on the marketing campaign, and we're getting consistency through mail. And I like mail because it's relatively simple to do. Like you don't have to be some tech whiz, and you can you can definitely control your throttle. I'm like, okay, if we would send 40,000 mailers out, we're gonna get 100 calls, and out of 100 calls, we're probably gonna get 50 leads. If we get 50 leads, we're probably gonna buy two or three houses. So you can kind of like reverse engineer your revenue through that. It is expensive, but it can be really, especially in certain markets, man, you can crush it with mail because it's not as saturated, depending on where you are. The third thing we're doing is, like you mentioned, we're cold calling. So we're taking the lists that we're mailing and we're sticking them over to a call center. I call it the insurance policy on data because you
mm,
don't want to rely on cold calling because they're generally going to be lower quality leads,
yeah,
but you're going to you have a way better chance of making a higher ROI over time on cold calling because the cost is so low. So
yeah,
like for example, like PPC, the cost is high, the quality is high, but the cost is high, so it's a little risky. If you're spending $1,500 a month on cold callers, you know, if you close three deals and make 30 grand, right? Let's just say worst case, which would be bad. I mean, that's terrible. You
yeah,
should be making more than that on three deals. But let's just say that's the case. You make 30 grand over the year and you spend like, 1,500 a month. Like, what is that? Like maybe 15,000. You already doubled your ROI. And that's if you did terrible. Like you
yeah,
should be making like six or seven on your cold calling because the cost is so low,
yeah,
right? And then the last thing we're doing, at least now, is we're taking a lot of these lists that we're mailing and calling, and we're filtering them down to like very niche stuff, like not necessarily like a mass cold caller can get in touch with them, or not necessarily like a mailer can get in touch with them because like they're vacant, they're inherited, like what I was telling you about we were doing in Texas, like they're vacant, they're inherited, they owe taxes,
yeah,
owner's dead, whatever. And we're calling the heirs directly like through the cell phone, right? And we're getting a lot of like we call them like what's like the deep skip tracing, but it's like you're calling someone who didn't even think they could sell the house since they didn't respond to your mailer because they didn't think. But if you call them on your phone, like text them on the iMessage blue to blue, and you're like, hey, like, I want to buy that house. Oh, I didn't think I could sell it. Oh, well, you are still the owner. We can buy it. We just did a $99,000 wholesale deal 2 weeks ago from doing that because
nice.
like people like didn't think they owned the house. So like you're basically giving them money they weren't expecting. So it's
Yeah,
easy to get a good price.
yeah,
Uh, so that's been cranking for us. We've always done that. And we've done pay per click. We're gonna get back into that because I've seen that, I bought a deal from a wholesaler 2 weeks ago. He made 116 grand on it and he got it from PPC. And I was like, damn, if that guy can run pay per click in Seattle, we would do really well because that guy couldn't get two words out of his mouth.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, damn, like what we're gonna do is I'm gonna hire a consultant to teach me how to do it, and then I'm gonna run it in-house because I don't want to get an agency involved just because I don't want to rely on someone else to dictate the success. So it's not that I don't want to pay the monthly fee because I don't mind that, but if PPC works out and you have a good agency, you're relying on that agency for success. And if it doesn't work out, you're going to blame the agency. You're going to say, oh, they sucked. They didn't do a good job. The keywords were crappy. But I'm like, if I can learn this and really understand it, like at a high level, I can control my marketing. And that's something I tell people is like, if you're going to outsource anything, it probably shouldn't be your marketing. Because if you were really good at advertising and running paid traffic, you can literally control your revenue.
Yeah.
Like if you know how to run paid ads like the right way, you can control your success. Like that's the one thing that you have control over. And I just don't think outsourcing that to vendors makes a lot of sense.
Man, I agree with you. And then, if you learn that, you learn how to do the PPC ads. If you ever do want to bring someone on the team and
You
train them,
could
then do it
exactly. You could
in-house.
outsource the ancillary tasks. Exactly.
Greg,
Exactly.
well, Greg, it looks like we're running out of time here, but I do have a couple more for you. So
Take your time, bro.
are you just doing real estate? Like, are you coaching? Do you have, mentorship?
Yeah, I have a little one I don't even talk about. It's called the Closers Club. It's like $500 a month or whatever. And yeah, it's just a small coaching group. Me and my buddy Josh run together. We don't ever really talk about it. We probably should promote it more, but I mean I guess that's an ancillary business. I mean, it's not very big, but it is a small coaching group that we have where we have, like I said, I think we have 5 or 6 clients, and we get on a call every 2 weeks and we just help them with their business. And we thought it was going to be like a sales training thing, but then as we got clients and stuff, we were like, yeah, sales isn't really their issue. It's probably something else, So
Yeah,
now we just cover everything. So I do have that. It's called the Closers Club, but I don't really promote it. My main business is buying houses, man. That's what I really love. It's what I'm passionate about. So we get a lot of like I would say traffic from other investors, and they bring us a lot of houses. So like, they see my social media, they see the videos or whatever, the houses we're at, and they're like, oh, like I got a deal on it's in New York. Let me call Greg. So that's the big thing that we like is getting referrals through social media.
that's awesome, man. I love referrals. I just seen a post on Facebook a little while ago before I got on here, and they were talking about referral based business and how in real estate it's very hard to build that, and how it takes a long time. But once you build it, like you say, really see the fruits from all of that, once you build that reputation.
Yeah, I agree, and I should have been doing it a lot sooner. But the thing that I've noticed with like, and when I say referral, I'm talking wholesale. Anybody who could have a deal for you, right? Doesn't have to only be wholesalers, but that's a great channel. Is like when someone sees your information on the internet and they see it often and frequently, and they potentially get value from it, like kind of like how you reached out to me, like, they're automatically going to tie whatever they have to you. So like if they get a lead in Rockland County, New York, where I am, if they see your videos and you're always talking about that, they're
Yeah,
gonna by nature just call you because like, oh shit, like Rockland County, Greg Helbeck buys there, or oh, like this one in Seattle. Oh, Greg says he buys in Seattle. I got a house in Gig Harbor, which is the suburbs. I'm gonna call Greg. So when you can kind of like associate like certain locations to what you're doing, you'll be surprised on who reaches out because a lot of the deals that we do buy from referral, like let's just say wholesalers, they're either brand new and they need help and we'll help them for free no matter what
yeah,
and maybe buy their deal, maybe not. Or it's like a sophisticated wholesaler who gets a lead that's not in their market. Because if it's like a legit local wholesaler who knows what they're doing, you're probably not going to be able to buy their deal at the price they want. But if they are like in Nebraska and they get a lead in Washington, like they're going to probably be a little bit more flexible on the price because you have that competitive advantage because you're in the local market.
yeah, man, love it. So if someone has a deal, they want a JV with you, or if they want, coaching from you, what's the best way to reach you?
If they have a deal they want to, it's the same way. So if you want to get in touch with me, whether you want to connect JV or potentially do the coaching, it's you just go to my Instagram at Grego37. That's my, personal Instagram page. Put out a lot of content. I also would recommend if they like the Instagram or they like the content, they should definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel because we've been trying to build that and it's been working over the last like year now. So I think it's at Greg Helbeck REI on YouTube, I believe is the YouTube channel. We put like 2 videos a week out, so we're always putting content out there.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys got to go check Greg. Like I said, I've been checking him for years, and a lot of the stuff that I've picked up is, from him, even though he didn't know it. You know what I mean? So if you could
Thank you.
leave, yeah, man, for sure. I want to, stay in touch with you, and hopefully, every so often I can have you come back on just to give
I'd
some
love to,
value.
man. I love doing podcast shows and being able to give back, man. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. It's like therapy.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, they say too, when you teach or when you talk about what you're doing, you also teach yourself more and you learn more about yourself, right? Like,
That's true.
I can tell just from you reflecting on your past, it took you to a place today, you know?
Yeah, it did. Took me
Yeah,
back. It's
yeah.
funny. You're a good interviewer, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I hope to keep doing this for a while. I enjoy doing it and asking questions and learning. So yeah, I appreciate your time. But if you could leave everybody watching with one final gem, what do you think it would be?
Real estate or wait, what in
Just
what context?
period. Just with life, with real estate, business, just however you feel at this time, whatever comes to you.
If you want to make real money, you have to learn real skills. That's what I would say. I mean, and what does that really mean? That means like it's in real estate, you need to really understand lead generation. If you don't know lead generation, you're fucked. Like that's the truth. You need to understand, like I'm just going to give you like nuts and bolts like this, like I said this, do it this way. Lead generation, you have to understand marketing, getting leads, convert. I mean, a conversion's a different situation, but lead generation, you got to really understand how to evaluate a piece of property because a big problem I see is people get leads and they don't know what the fuck a deal is. They're
Yeah,
like, oh, I got a lead. I don't know what it's worth. Like, you have to know how do you comp an asset? How do you run a repair budget? What would a buyer pay for a wholesale deal? What would a retail buyer buy a house for as is? Like, if you really understand the numbers behind analyzing real estate, whether it's residential or commercial, it gives you a huge advantage and it gives you so much confidence because you can talk the talk with the seller and you can justify things. I would say those are the two biggest things is if you can get really good at getting leads and then really good at analyzing those leads, obviously the missing piece there is the sales component, and that is important. But if you get enough leads and you can make reasonable offers, that will get you farther than being terrible at getting leads and being terrible. Like let's say you're horrible at getting leads and you're horrible at analyzing deals, but you're really good at talking to sellers, you're fucked because
yeah.
you're going to make the wrong offer. You're just going to convince them to do it. So I would tell you that sales is really important, but I would rather, if I had my druthers, be good at getting leads and good at evaluating real estate in this industry. Not because if you're in a different industry, yeah, sales is probably going to be a huge advantage. But I've just noticed that if you can make a bunch of offers off market, like even if you can't get two words out of your mouth, like that wholesaler I was telling you about, like you're going to find success.
Awesome. I appreciate you, Greg. I think you dropped a lot of jewels for people, and I hope they rewind this and watch it as many times as they need to get my views up.
That's
Uh,
right. When this gets published, let me know and I'll promote it.
awesome. I will, man. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a good one.
You're welcome. Thanks, man.